Every once in a while, a product comes around that I'm just crazy about, and I want to talk to you about tetration today. My name's Rita Younger. On Twitter, I am SDN Girl, and I'm the founder of TotalPackets.com. So, Cisco Tetration, why am I crazy about this? Well, I've always been into network analytics before we even used the term network analytics, and this particular network analytics platform is kind of the biggest, baddest one out there. So what tetration is it is a Hadoop cluster. So it's a big data cluster. So it's going to run very, very quickly. And what it does is you put sensors on the network switches and you put sensors on the host. And what it does is it collects information from the headers of the packet. So it's going to be the IP, the TCP, the flow information off of the headers of those packets. And then it analyzes the headers of those packets. And then it's going to be able to return information near real time, under 10 minutes. What it's going to do, it's going to give you visibility into your data center that you have never had before. Think about it. If you could ask your data center anything, how would you do that? It would be through Cisco Tetration. The types of use cases that we see for it. Well, one of the first ones that interested me was the ability to do application insight. So application insight, I'm SDN Girl, right? So I work with software-defined networking. And software-defined networking promises this utopia of having whitelists where applications cannot talk to other applications, where all traffic is not permitted unless explicitly allowed. In order to do that, in order to have true whitelist, we need to understand which applications are talking to which other applications within the data center. And I can tell you, I've never met anyone who had a firm grasp on that. And finding out that information is very, very difficult. Cisco Tetration can help you with that. By taking this metadata from the headers of the packets, it's able to map this flow information from IP, from TCP, port numbers, and is going to be able to identify which applications talk to which other applications. It's going to create these things called chords, which is going to show you a web server is then talking to a database server, for example. What it's also going to do from that, it's going to allow you to develop policies that you can use within Cisco ACI to really control that traffic. Now, you don't need Cisco ACI to use tetration. It's still very, very valuable without ACI. For example, one of the first things that happens when a customer plugs this in, within the first 10 minutes, they always go, oh my, because they have traffic going on that they had no clue. So they have outliers. So they have traffic that may have come in from a public-facing server, for example, that is now going directly to an HR server. That can be identifying an advanced persistent threat. You know, when information is stolen, I won't mention the companies, but we all know the big ones who have been in the news lately. That's not a brute force attack that a hacker just comes in, bang, one night, clears the place out, takes all of the data that it can grab. No, advanced persistent threats are little bits of information that are being taken bit by bit by bit by bit over a period of time, and they go undetected. One of the things that happens with tetration is you're able to see those outliers, you're able to see those traffic paths that should not exist, and you're able to enforce those and shut those down. Another thing you can do, speaking of policies, is you can model policies. So you don't have to have the policy take place immediately. You can model the policy and you can see what's affected by that policy change you're about to implement. And for that matter, now this is really cool. A lot of companies will tell me that they're going to move an application to a public cloud. Well, if you move an application to a public cloud, applications are tied to all kinds of other applications. And so what you can also do is you can model what happens if you move one application to the cloud. How much traffic is going to have to trombone back to your private data center because that application you moved is tied back or talking to other applications that are on-prem. You can actually model that and you can see what the cost would be, the cost of the WAN connectivity for it, as well as the cost of moving it to that public cloud provider. One of the other great things you can do is it acts like a DVR for your data center. So you can roll back and you can look back at what has taken place. Now, how far you can roll back depends upon which model. The largest one, the Tetration 39RU, that one can roll back up to a year. So let's say you are a company that had a big threat that became big news. You could roll back and you can see exactly when that advanced persistent threat started, if it started within the last year. Now, speaking of form factors, there are multiple form factors, and this is what's really exciting. Now, I have lots of customers who have used or have purchased, I should say, and are using the 39RU unit. That 39RU, that's 39 rack units, is a big data Hadoop cluster. It is usually kept on-prem at a customer's data center, and that is able to analyze their data and give them up to a year's worth of forensics. The second unit to come out was a smaller one. It's an 8RU unit called Tetration M. Very similar, but smaller in size. It is an on-prem solution, and that particular unit can keep, it depends upon the amount of data, but about a month, maybe a couple months worth of information. Now, the next form factor that came out was cloud, which means you install your sensors on-prem in your data center, so your sensors onto your network switches, as well as to your servers. And then that information, that metadata, is then sent across to where you've installed the Tetration cluster, which is in a public cloud. So using AWS, for example. The next one that came out, or next two, they kind of came out together, Tetration V. And I do have one customer who's using Tetration V. And Tetration V is virtual tetration, which means you use your own hardware. And what you do is you install your sensors and you install an OVA file that installs the Tetration cluster. And it's an on-prem solution that you can use. As a matter of fact, this one particular customer used another Cisco product called CWAM to look at all of their servers and reclaim servers that were just sitting there and weren't being used. Think about server sprawl. It's so easy to spin up virtual machines and maybe someone uses them for a month and then they just sit there. Well, they were able to use CWAM and gain back all kinds of server space, and they actually were able to then utilize that with Tetration V. Probably the most exciting form factor that affects most of my customers is Tetration software as a service. What that means is you are paying per workload, and it actually comes out to about $250 per workload per year, give or take. Don't quote me on that one, but that's what we've kind of figured it out to be. So it makes it much more palatable. And you install the sensors on your network and on your host on-prem within your data center. That metadata then goes to Cisco to where they're providing the as a service, so the as a service option. And even with that, it's still near real time. So it's still 10 minutes or under before that information is being returned. For analytics, that is really darn fast. When I hear people say, I can't afford tetration, the first thing I say is you really can't afford not to have tetration. If you look at the cost of cleaning up a breach, I'm talking the cost to your reputation, the cost to your stock prices, the cost of the physical cleanup, you can't afford not to have tetration. Security is an onion, and this layer is an incredibly important layer. One thing I caution is with tetration, you can do all kinds of integrations, integration with ServiceNow, you can do integration with ACI. You really want to take full advantage of tetration. It's not an inexpensive product, so make sure that you're taking full advantage of everything tetration can do. Until next time, SDN girl Rita Younger, thanks for joining.